Hi again, everyone. Hope you're staying safe and well. I'm Deanna Dow, a postdoctoral fellow from the Center for Autism Research and Treatment here at UCLA, and I'm here for another installment of our CART COVID-19 videos to present helpful strategies for those of you who are home with children during this time. So today I want to shift a little bit to talk about something different. Today we're going to be talking about returning to life after COVID-19. So, at some point soon, if you haven't already, you'll probably start considering getting back to some of your day to day activities. And the thought of that might be pretty scary, frankly. This is a whole new experience for all of us. Life will not feel the same as it did before COVID for a while now. But many of us need to get back to some degree of normalcy to keep up with all of our life's daily demands. So when we consider going back out in public and starting to get back to some of our everyday activities, we know there's some risk. And of course, we recommend that you stay apprised with the latest recommendations and regulations in your area to minimize this risk. But even after you've done that, it's normal and it's okay to feel anxious about this. Some anxiety is actually helpful and is meant to keep us safe when there's potential danger, which there is in this situation. And there's a lot that's still unknown. So we know that we feel even more anxious when there's unknown and we don't have timelines and we don't know when this will be over. And we don't really know what that risk looks like necessarily. And no one has navigated this situation before. So that makes it extra scary to a lot of us. And it's difficult when we get mixed messages. Sometimes we hear some things are super dangerous. Sometimes we hear, oh, actually, that's okay. And that can be really confusing. But that's true in a lot of life that we might not have a clear answer to things. And so we need to decide what is the best for my family in this situation. So, what can you do to help you start doing what you need to do in your life and coexisting with COVID while trying to mitigate as much as possible the anxiety that you might be feeling? First of all, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. So, time has slowed down for most people, and in a lot of ways, that might be a good thing. So, be mindful of what aspects of your normal, hectic life you're ready to jump back into, and which aspects you might want to keep at a little slower pace. So, be intentional. Start with, things that are lower risk. So, things like being outdoors with your children, going for walks, having social interactions that are brief and 6 feet apart, doing things very mindfully in a step-by-step way. And you can reestablish some of your routines, but only to the extent that you want to or that you need to. So many of us have shifted from having alarm clocks and early wake up times and commutes and having to wear business clothes every day. And not all of these things need to shift back immediately. So, again, just be intentional. Think about the things that you want to change. What routines in your life are really helpful that you'd like to bring back and bring back in a slow way? The most important thing about anxiety to know is that the more anxious we feel, the more we want to avoid a situation. But that avoidance ultimately heightens our fear even more because it tells our brain there's something to be scared of. And while we know there's risk involved in this situation, to get back to life, we must take steps to mitigate that risk and be mindful of what we're doing. But there's still always going to be risk. So think about driving in the car. There's always going to be risk when you get into a car and you drive somewhere. You could always get in a car accident. And that risk is relatively high. But for most of us, that doesn't stop us from driving places. The benefits of being able to go places outweighs that risk that we have. And we know, we can be a safe driver. We can look around for people around us. We can be defensive. And those are some of the ways that we mitigate risk in that situation because we need to drive. We need to get places. We also know that our mental health is better when we're socially connected and participating in meaningful activities like going to work or school or having social activities. And that's made COVID especially challenging for a lot of people. So, if we can cope with crisis together as much as possible in a safe way, having those social interactions and returning to the world to some extent is really important. So, what can we do to help ourselves and our families during this transition time? For ourselves, we really need to challenge those thoughts that are making us feel more anxious. So, how likely is it that I'm going to get sick? Am I taking the steps that I need to protect myself? Remind yourself of the benefits of what you're doing. Are you going out to an important doctor's appointment for your child? Are you having a brief social interaction outside with a friend that's going to make you feel rejuvenated? These are the things you need to consider when you're weighing some of these pros and cons. You can also distract yourself. So limit the time you spend reading COVID information. Make sure you're doing things for self care. Make sure you're exercising, getting good sleep, connecting socially, even if that's only over the phone. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, do things like watching a funny YouTube video or calling a friend or playing a game on your iPhone or taking a bath, focusing on the next vacation you want to take, thinking positive thoughts like that. And people have different levels of tolerance for sitting with these uncomfortable feelings of anxiety. And sometimes it's just helpful to acknowledge that it's okay to be uncomfortable. And sometimes we have to feel uncomfortable during these times. For your kids and for your family, you want to make sure to model how you want them to act and feel. And so if you're having big emotions like anxiety, you want to label those. You want to say, I'm feeling worried right now. And then you want to take steps to help yourself in that situation. I'm going to take a minute to take some deep breaths. Take some deep breaths with them. Show them a mindfulness app that you have that works really well. So show them that it's okay to experience these big emotions and there are ways to cope with those. Not only the way that we think and thinking those helpful thoughts, but also taking some steps like deep breathing or doing an enjoyable activity. You also should focus on what's most important to your family. So you know your family best. Are you thinking about maybe resuming ABA services? What are the pros and cons of that decision for your child and for your family? Do you need another caregiver to come help out and give you some respite? For some families, these things are incredibly important and are going to potentially outweigh the risk associated with not being very strict about your abiding to social distancing rules. So, those are things that you really need to be the judge of. We know the world has changed. We'll eventually and gradually get back to things that are really important in our lives and get back to that daily grind. And it's important to remind ourselves that there are pros and cons to every decision, and there's always going to be risk involved. But we should feel empowered to make those decisions for ourselves and our families because we're the ones that know them best. Sending warm thoughts to everyone. Stay safe, and we hope to see you soon.